The space station orbiting Earth buzzed with activity. It was the first of its kind, a place where humans and aliens could meet. The station had been built quickly after the aliens arrived 6 months ago. Their ships had appeared without warning, huge vessels that gleamed like pearls in the sunlight. Dr. Alan Foster looked out the viewing window at the alien ship docked nearby. Even after all these months, he still felt a mix of wonder and fear when he saw it. Alan was the lead scientist for the human team. He had brown hair with touches of gray at the temples and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. But he wasn't smiling now. Today was too important. "They're ready for us," said Megan Wright as she joined him at the window. Megan was the team's language expert. She had learned to speak basic Xintha, the common language of the Galactic Alliance, faster than anyone expected. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and she carried her tablet with all her translation programs. "Let's not keep them waiting," Alan said. He straightened his blue uniform jacket. "Where's Frank?" "Officer Collins is already at the meeting room doing his final security check," Megan replied. They walked together through the curved hallway of the station. Other humans and a few aliens moved past them. The aliens were hard to miss. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with slender bodies and skin that seemed almost see-through in places. Instead of eyes, they had patches of shimmering, color-changing skin on their faces. These patches were how they saw the world, though scientists still didn't fully understand how their vision worked. Frank Collins met them at the door to the meeting room. He was a solid man with short black hair and watchful eyes. As head of security, he never fully relaxed around the aliens. "All clear, Dr. Foster," Frank said. "They've brought 8 representatives today instead of the usual 5. I've been told it's a sign of respect." Alan nodded. "Remember, everyone, this is our 7th official meeting. Let's build on the progress we've made." The door slid open, and they entered the large circular room. The alien delegation was already seated on one side of the round table. Their leader, Ambassador Zukal, rose to greet the humans. His skin rippled with blue and green patterns, their way of showing polite welcome. "Greetings, Earth representatives," Zukal said in careful English. The aliens had gotten much better at human languages than humans had at alien ones. "We trust this cycle finds you well." "Thank you, Ambassador," Alan replied with a small bow. "We are well and ready to continue our discussions." As the humans took their seats, Alan noticed something odd behind the alien delegation. It was like a tall shadow, but it moved in ways that didn't match any of the aliens' movements. He had seen it before in previous meetings, but had assumed it was some trick of the station's lighting. The meeting began as usual, with both sides sharing information about their cultures and technologies. The aliens were particularly interested in human art and music concepts they found fascinating. In return, they shared information about star navigation and their alliance of 27 different species spread across the galaxy. During a discussion about energy systems, Zukal mentioned something that caught Alan's attention. "The Great Shepherd guides us to harmony in all things," the alien said. "Even in our power sources, we seek balance as the Blessed One teaches." Alan made a note on his tablet. This wasn't the first time the aliens had mentioned the Great Shepherd or the Blessed One. The human team had assumed these were religious references or perhaps metaphors that didn't translate well. As Zukal continued speaking, the strange shadow behind him seemed to grow larger. It shifted in a way that almost looked like it was leaning forward with interest. Alan found himself distracted by it. "Is everything acceptable, Dr. Foster?" Zukal asked, noticing Alan's attention had wandered. "Yes, sorry," Alan said. "I was just wondering about the tall figure standing behind your delegation, the shadowy one. It seems very interested in our discussion." The room went completely silent. The aliens froze in place. Their skin, normally shifting with subtle patterns, turned a uniform pale white. Some of them made small, gasping sounds, the first time the humans had ever heard such a reaction from them. What did you say?" Zukal asked in a whisper. Alan looked at Megan and Frank, confused by the reaction. "The tall shadow figure," he repeated. "The one that's been at all our meetings. It's right there." He pointed directly at it. The shadow seemed to notice his gesture. It moved slightly, shifting to stand more directly behind Zukal. Now that Alan was looking directly at it, he could see it better. It was tall, at least 12 feet high, with a form that wasn't quite solid. It had what looked like long tendrils or perhaps tentacles that moved slowly around its main body. "You can see the Blessed One?" Zukal asked, his voice trembling. "You mean that tall shadow thing with the moving parts coming off it?" "Yeah, I can see it," Alan said. He looked at his colleagues. "Can't you?" Megan nodded. "It's been at every meeting. I thought it was some kind of observer from your side that preferred to stand." Frank's hand moved closer to his sidearm. "I've been keeping an eye on it since the first meeting. I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be visible or not." The aliens began talking rapidly among themselves in their own language, too fast for Megan's translator to keep up. Their skin flashed with patterns of what seemed like alarm or excitement, perhaps both. Finally, Zukal turned back to the humans. "This is unprecedented. The Great Shepherd is visible only to those with the sacred sense, developed through thousands of years of evolution and spiritual practice. No newly encountered species has ever been able to perceive the Blessed Ones without special technology or genetic modification." "So that thing is your god?" Frank asked bluntly. "The Great Shepherd walks among all sentient beings, guiding and watching," another alien explained. "But only the faithful who have evolved the ability can perceive their presence. It is the foundation of our alliance. All member species eventually develop this sacred sense." "But humans haven't been part of your alliance," Megan pointed out. "We've never even been to space until recently." "Precisely," Zukal said. His skin now pulsed with rapid patterns of blue and gold. "This is why we must immediately contact the High Council. If humans can naturally see the Blessed Ones—" He paused, seeming to search for words. "Everything we understand about evolution, about spiritual development, about our place in the universe. It all must be reconsidered." As they spoke, the shadow being moved closer to the table, Alan felt a strange feeling, like a cool breeze across his mind. The shadow leaned down, seeming to study him directly. "It's getting closer," Alan said quietly. All the aliens turned to look at the empty space where, to them, nothing visible existed, but their skin patterns showed they believed the humans completely. "The Great Shepherd approaches you," Zukal whispered. "This has never happened in any first contact situation in our recorded history." The shadow reached out one tendril-like extension toward Alan's face. He sat very still, unsure what to do. "Should I say something to it?" he asked. The aliens gasped collectively. "You would speak directly to the Blessed One?" one of them asked, in shock. The meeting was clearly over. The aliens rose quickly, their movements jerky and uncoordinated, so different from their usual grace. "We must consult with our leaders," Zukal announced. "This changes everything. Please remain available for further discussion." As the aliens hurried from the room, the shadow being remained. It seemed to watch the aliens leave, then turned its attention back to the humans. "Well," Frank said, his hand still near his weapon, "I think we just changed the balance of power, without even trying." The shadow being moved around the table, examining each human carefully before it slowly faded from view. "Something tells me," Megan said quietly, "that this is just the beginning." News spread quickly throughout the space station. Within hours, more alien ships arrived. They positioned themselves in orbit around Earth, keeping a respectful distance but clearly showing great interest. On the station, the corridors that had once been nearly empty now bustled with alien visitors. Dr. Alan Foster sat in the main conference room with his team, waiting for yet another meeting to begin. It had been 3 days since they revealed they could see the shadow beings. In that time, they had barely had a moment to rest. "I never thought telling someone I could see something would cause so much trouble," Alan said, rubbing his tired eyes. Megan Wright looked up from her tablet. She had been working non-stop to update her translation programs to handle the many new alien dialects they were encountering. "It's not just trouble," she said. "It's a complete shift in how they see us. Before we were just another primitive species that happened to develop space travel. Now we're something special to them." Officer Frank Collins stood by the door, watching the aliens pass by in the hallway. More of them were looking in at the humans now, their skin patterns showing colors that Megan had translated as awe and fear. "I don't like being special," Frank said. "Special means unpredictable. Unpredictable means dangerous, and dangerous things get contained or eliminated." The door slid open, and Dr. Samantha Miller entered. She was the team's expert on alien biology, a shorter woman with curly blonde hair and glasses. Her lab coat had seen better days. "You won't believe what I've learned," she said, dropping a stack of data tablets on the table. "I've been working with their scientists to understand why we can see these blessed ones when other species can't, without evolution or technology." Alan leaned forward. "And?" "It's our eyes," Samantha explained, pulling up images on the main screen. "Human eyes evolved to see a specific range of light. As it turns out, that range happens to include the frequency at which these beings exist." The screen showed comparative images of human eyes alongside the sensory organs of several alien species. "Other species need special adaptations to see this frequency," she continued. "The Alliance races developed these adaptations over thousands of years. They see it as a spiritual achievement, proof that they're worthy of connecting with their gods. But to us, it's just normal vision." Frank laughed without humor. "So we're not spiritually advanced. We just happen to evolve the right kind of eyeballs." "Exactly," Samantha said. "But to them, this is like finding out a newborn baby can solve complex equations. It shouldn't be possible according to everything they believe." The door opened again, and Ambassador Zukal entered with a group of aliens Alan hadn't seen before. These new aliens wore elaborate coverings draped over their bodies, with symbols etched into small metal plates hanging from the fabric. "Dr. Foster," Zukal said, his skin showing respectful patterns, "may I present the spiritual guides of the Central Worlds. They have traveled very far to meet with you." Alan stood and bowed slightly, as he had learned was proper. "We are honored by your presence." One of the robed aliens stepped forward. Unlike the others, this one's skin was a deeper blue, almost purple in places. "I am Elder Jolan," the alien said. Its voice translator made the words sound musical. "We have many questions for you and your kind." For the next 2 hours, the spiritual leaders asked detailed questions about human vision, human beliefs, and whether humans had ever recognized the Blessed Ones throughout history. Alan explained about human religions, about angels and spirits, and gods, wondering if any of these might have been the same beings. During a break in the questioning, Lieutenant Paul Garcia entered the room. He was part of the military contingent assigned to the station, a tall man with a serious face and sharp eyes. "Dr. Foster, could I speak with you for a moment?" Paul asked. "It's important." Alan excused himself and stepped into a small side room with Paul. "We've been monitoring the space around Earth," Paul said, keeping his voice low. "There's been a significant increase in those shadow beings. Our sensors can detect them now that we know what to look for." "How many?" Alan asked. "At least 50 in Earth orbit. Before the aliens arrived, we found evidence of maybe 2 or 3 at most." Paul showed Alan images on his tablet. The shadows were barely visible on the screen, but they were there, tall, wispy forms floating in space. "They're watching us," Alan said. "That's what the aliens call divine attendance," Paul replied. "But it looks more like surveillance to me, and I don't like how they're concentrating around our communication satellites and defense systems." When Alan returned to the meeting, he looked at the aliens with new eyes. They were still asking questions, still showing patterns of reverence, but now he wondered if there was something else going on. As Elder Jolan spoke about the sacred history of the Alliance, Alan noticed one of the shadow beings entering the room. None of the previous meetings had included these entities inside the station before. This one moved differently from the others Alan had seen. It seemed more purposeful. "Excuse me," Alan interrupted, pointing to the corner of the room. "One of your blessed ones has joined us." The aliens all turned. Though they couldn't see it, their skin showed patterns of deep reverence. They bowed their heads. "Can you describe its movements?" Zukal asked quietly. It's watching us, Alan said. Now it's moving around the table looking at each of you. It seems particularly interested in Elder Jolan. The Elder's skin pulsed with bright gold patterns. The Blessed One honors me with its attention, he said, his voice trembling. The shadow being moved to hover directly behind the Elder. It extended what looked like a tendril toward the alien's head. It's reaching toward you, Alan said. It's touching the back of your head now. Elder Jolan sat perfectly still, his skin now glowing with intense patterns. This is a blessing beyond measure, he whispered. But something felt wrong to Alan. The shadow's touch didn't seem reverent or blessing-like. It reminded him of a scientist examining a specimen. The shadow removed its tendril and moved toward Alan next. He felt a cold sensation as it approached him. Now it's coming toward me, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The Blessed One chooses to examine you, another elder said. This is a great honor. The shadow reached out and Alan felt something brush against his mind. Images flashed before his eyes. Stars, planets, strange buildings on worlds he didn't recognize. Then faces, thousands of alien faces from species he had never seen before. Alan gasped and stepped back. The shadow withdrew. What happened? Zukal asked, concern showing in his skin patterns. It showed me things, Alan said, his voice shaking. Stars, planets, other aliens, so many of them. He looked directly at the shadow being. It was showing me the extent of its influence. The shadow moved back slightly as if surprised that Alan had understood. The Blessed One shared visions with you, Elder Jolan said with awe. This has not happened with a new species for thousands of years. The shadow moved toward the door, then paused and seemed to look back at Alan. He had the distinct feeling it was sending him a message, though not in words, I think, Alan said slowly. It wants us to know that it's aware of us now. Not just aware of our existence, but aware that we can see it. As the shadow departed, the aliens began discussing, among themselves in excited tones. But Paul caught Alan's eye from across the room and gave a small, worried shake of his head. Later, when the aliens had left, the human team gathered in their private meeting room. They worship these things, Frank said. But we don't have to, and from what I saw today, I'm not sure we should. Samantha adjusted her glasses. The question is, what do these shadow beings want? And now that they know we can see them, what will they do about it? Alan looked out the window at Earth below. More ships had arrived, forming a loose ring around the planet. And between them, visible only to human eyes, the shadows watched and waited, I think, Alan said quietly. We're about to find out. 1 month after the first revelation, Earth had changed. Alien ships filled the skies. Some countries welcomed the visitors with open arms. Others closed their borders and pointed weapons at the sky. Everyone wanted to know more about the shadow, beings that only humans could see. Alan Foster stood at the window of his new office in the United Nations building in New York. The room had been given to him as the head of the Human-Alien Relations team. Outside, protesters and supporters gathered, daily carrying signs about aliens and gods. The alliance is splitting apart, said Claire Bennett as she entered the room. Claire was a diplomat who had joined the team 2 weeks ago. She had dark skin, short black hair, and a calm way of speaking that made people listen. It's happening, faster than anyone expected. Alan turned from the window. How bad is it? 2 main groups have formed, Claire explained, setting her tablet on the desk. The Venerators believe humans are special, chosen by their gods. They think we have some divine purpose. The skeptics think we're dangerous and should be isolated until they understand us better. And which group has more ships around our planet? Alan asked. Right now it's even, Claire said. But the Venerators want to build permanent bases on Earth. The skeptics want us quarantined. Neither option sounds great to me. The door opened, and Frank Collins entered with Lieutenant Paul Garcia. Both men looked tired. They had been working with Earth's military leaders to monitor the situation in space. The shadow beings are everywhere now, Paul said without greeting. Not just around the planet. People are seeing them in cities, in homes, in schools. My mother called me yesterday saying she saw one watching her in the grocery store. Alan nodded. Reports were coming in from around the world. What had once been limited to those in direct contact with aliens was spreading. Some people ran in fear when they saw the shadows. Others tried to speak to them. A few even tried to worship them, following the aliens' example. Any progress on communicating with them? Alan asked. Frank shook his head. They watch. They listen. But they don't speak. Claire's tablet chimed. She looked at it and frowned. The Venerator ships are moving closer to Earth. The Skeptic ships are adjusting to maintain their positions. They're preparing for something, Frank said, his hand instinctively moving to where his weapon would normally be. The door opened again, and Dr. Samantha Miller rushed in, followed by George Martinez, a NASA engineer who had been working with the alien scientists. George was a shorter man with a round face and quick, nervous movements. "We found something," Samantha said, her voice excited. George was reviewing the sensor data from the space station. George plugged a small device into the main screen on the wall. Images appeared showing recordings of space around Earth. The shadow beings were visible as faint outlines against the darkness. "At first we thought they were just watching," George explained. "But when I slowed down the recordings and adjusted the contrast, I saw this." He zoomed in on two shadow beings. As they moved, faint lines of light passed between them. "They're communicating," George said. "These pulses happen too quickly for our eyes to notice in real time. But the sensors caught them." "That's not surprising," Claire said. "Even gods would need to talk to each other." "That's not the important part," Samantha cut in. "George, show them the language analysis." George pressed a few buttons and a new image appeared. It showed wave patterns with markers at certain points. "I ran these signals through our translation matrix and compared them to known Alliance languages," he said. "There's no match, none at all." "What does that mean?" Alan asked. "It means," George said, "that these beings speak a language that none of the Alliance races understand. They've been hiding their communications from the very people who worship them." The room fell silent as everyone considered this. "The Alliance races can't see these communications," Samantha added. "They've never known their gods talk to each other." Frank let out a low whistle. "So these shadow things have been keeping secrets from their followers for thousands of years." "We need to tell Ambassador Zukal," Alan decided. "Tell me what, Dr. Foster?" said Zukal as he entered the room with two other aliens. Their skin showed patterns of concern. Alan hesitated, then nodded to George. "Show him." George played the recording again, explaining what they had found. As he spoke, the alien's skin patterns changed from concern to confusion, then to something Megan had recently translated as existential distress. "This cannot be," one of the aliens said. "The Blessed Ones commune with us through dreams and visions. They do not need such crude methods of communication." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Samantha said gently. Zukal's skin had paled to an almost white color. "If what you say is true, then for millennia, the great shepherds have had their own conversations, their own plans, while letting you believe they were just spiritual guardians," Frank finished. Suddenly, a shadow being appeared in the corner of the room. All the humans turned to look at it. It was larger than most they had seen before, its form more defined. "There's one here," now Alan told the aliens, "a big one." The three aliens immediately bowed their heads in reverence, though they could not see what the humans saw. "What is it doing?" Zukal asked. "Just watching," Alan said. Then he noticed something. "Wait, it's making those light patterns George showed us." "It's communicating with someone," George agreed, looking at readings on his tablet. "But who?" As if in answer, another shadow appeared on the opposite side of the room. This one was smaller but moved more quickly. The two shadows exchanged pulses of light. "Now there are two," Claire reported. "They're talking to each other." Zukal turned to where Claire was looking, his skin showing deep patterns of blue and gold, signs of religious devotion. "What a blessing to have multiple shepherds present." Alan watched the shadows closely. I don't think it's a blessing. I think they're worried. They know we've discovered their secret language. The smaller shadow suddenly moved toward the aliens. It reached out a tendril toward Zukal's head, just as Alan had seen one do to Elder Jolan before. It's touching you, Ambassador, Alan said. Zukal went completely still. I feel nothing, as always, but knowing it touches me is honor enough. Frank stepped closer to Alan. I don't trust these things, he whispered. Gods don't need to spy or keep secrets. The larger shadow moved toward the humans now. It seemed to grow as it approached, filling the corner of the room. The temperature dropped noticeably. It's trying to intimidate us, Samantha whispered. Alan stepped forward, looking directly at the shadow being. We see you, he said clearly, not just your form. We see what you're doing. We see how you communicate. And we're going to find out what you really are. The shadow pulsed with bright light. The aliens gasped, sensing something even if they couldn't see it. The Blessed One responds to you, Zukal said in awe. But Alan felt no awe, only a cold determination. The shadow receded, moving back through the wall and disappearing. I think, Claire said into the silence that followed, we just started something we may not be able to stop. Outside, more ships appeared in orbit. On the ground, more people reported seeing shadows watching them. And in labs around the world, scientists began developing ways to record and translate the light language of the beings that had pretended to be gods. The game had changed. For thousands of years, these entities had watched unseen, guiding civilizations that could barely perceive them. Now, for the first time, they were the ones being watched and studied, and they didn't seem to like it at all. 2 months had passed since the first meeting with the aliens. Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The skies were filled with alien ships from both factions. Countries around the world had set up special departments to deal with alien visitors and shadow sightings. And in a secret lab beneath New York City, Dr. Carol Evans was about to try something that might change everything. Carol was a quantum physicist who had been working on a special project since the shadow beings were first identified. She had short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her hands moved quickly as she made final adjustments to the large machine that filled the center of the lab. Are you sure this will work? Alan Foster asked. He stood nearby with Samantha, Frank, and Ambassador Zukal. The alien's skin showed patterns of deep concern. No, Carol answered honestly. But theory suggests it should. These beings exist partially in another dimension. That's why most species can't see them without special adaptations. But they're not fully in that other dimension either. And this machine will... What exactly? Frank asked, eyeing the equipment with suspicion. It will enhance the overlap between dimensions, Carol explained. Think of it as turning up the volume. It should make the shadow beings more solid in our reality. And if I'm right, it will let us hear them too. This is dangerous, Zukal said. His skin flickered with worried patterns. The Blessed Ones have never been approached in such a way. That's exactly why we need to try, Samantha said. These beings have influenced your civilization for thousands of years. Don't you want to know what they really are? The alien's skin showed conflict. Over the past weeks, as more evidence emerged about the shadow being's secret communications, many aliens had begun questioning their beliefs. Even Zukal, once deeply reverent, now had doubts. Very well, he said finally. But I must warn the venerator ships of what we are attempting. No, Frank said firmly. We don't know how they'll react. Some of them still think these shadows are actual gods. They deserve to know, Zukal insisted. Alan stepped between them. We'll compromise. You can tell them after we've completed the test. If it works, they'll have proof. If it doesn't, there's nothing to tell. Zukal agreed reluctantly. His skin showed patterns that meant acceptance but not happiness. Everyone ready? Carol asked, her finger hovering over the activation button. Once we start, we can't stop the process until it's complete. They all nodded. Carol pressed the button. The machine hummed to life. Blue light filled the room as energy fields expanded from the central platform. The air seemed to thicken, like looking through water. "Now we wait," Carol said. "If my calculations are correct, any shadow beings in the area will be drawn to the energy field." They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the air in the center of the platform began to darken. A shape formed, tall and wispy at first, then more solid. The shadow being appeared more clearly than any of them had seen before. Its body was long and thin, with multiple tendrils extending from a central mass. Where a head might be on a human, this being had a cluster of smaller tendrils that moved independently. "It worked," Samantha whispered. Zukal stared at the platform, his skin showing shock and awe. I can see it," he said in disbelief. "After all these centuries of faith, I can finally see the Blessed One." The shadow being seemed confused by its new solidity. Its tendrils moved rapidly, touching its own body as if checking that it was real. "Now for Phase 2, Carol said, adjusting some controls. "Let's see if we can communicate." She activated a secondary system. A gentle hum filled the room as translation matrices powered up. The machine had been programmed with every known language, including the light pulse language George Martinez had decoded. "Can you understand us?" Carol asked clearly. The shadow being went still. Its tendrils stopped moving for a moment, then began to pulse with light. The machine translated, "I hear. This is unexpected." Everyone in the room caught their breath. It was the first time any of the shadow beings had spoken directly to anyone. "We have many questions," Alan said, stepping forward. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" The shadow pulsed again. "We are observers. We have watched your kind and many others for millennia." "Are you gods?" Zukal asked, his voice trembling. The shadow's pulses became faster. "No, we are not gods. Your ancestors saw us and created stories to explain our presence. We did not correct this misconception." "Why not?" Frank demanded. "It was convenient," the shadow replied. "Worship meant we could observe without interference." Zukal's skin turned pale. "Our entire civilization is built on our connection to you. Our laws, our traditions, everything." The shadow's tendrils twisted in what might have been discomfort. "Yes, your species and many others developed as we guided. It was necessary." "Necessary? For what?" Alan asked. Before the shadow could answer, alarms sounded throughout the lab. Frank rushed to a console. "We've got company," he said. "Multiple venerator ships have broken orbit. They're heading this way." Zukal's skin showed patterns of shock. "They must have detected the energy field. They will think we are harming the Blessed One." On the platform, the shadow being's form began to flicker. Its pulses became erratic, and the translation came through broken. "Others. Coming. Many. Angry. You have changed. The balance." "What balance?" Alan pressed. "What are you really doing here?" The shadow steadied itself. Its pulses became clear again. "We are caretakers, sometimes pruners of evolutionary branches." Carol's face paled. "Pruners? You mean you eliminate species?" "When necessary," the shadow replied. "Those that develop in unwanted directions." The implications hit everyone at once. These beings weren't gods. They were gardeners tending the galaxy like a farm, allowing some species to grow while cutting back others. "And humans?" Samantha asked. "What direction do you think we're heading?" The shadow's tendrils reached toward her. "Uncertain. You see, us without guidance. You question. You do not worship. This is new." More alarms sounded. The building shook slightly. "They're landing outside," Frank reported. "We've got maybe 5 minutes before they break in." "We need to shut this down," Alan said urgently. "If they find us holding one of their gods captive, they'll kill us all." Carol moved to the controls, but the shadow's voice stopped her. "Wait. You should know. The division among the Alliance is growing. Some believe humans must be contained. Others believe you are the next step in evolution. War is possible." "War?" Zukal's skin flashed with alarm patterns. Over humans? Over the future, the shadow corrected. Humans represent change. Change is frightening. The building shook again, harder this time. We're out of time, Frank said. They're using energy weapons on the outer doors, Carol began, shutting down the machine. The shadow being's form started to fade back to its usual transparent state. One last question, Alan called out. What should we call you? Not blessed ones or great shepherds. What are you really called? The shadow's final pulses came as it faded. We are the Watchers. We have always watched. But now, you see, us too. As the machine powered down, the shadow vanished from normal sight. Only the humans could still see its faint outline as it moved through the wall and disappeared. They're coming in, Frank shouted as distant crashes echoed through the building. What do we do now? Samantha asked, looking at Alan. He looked at Zukal, whose skin showed confusion and loss. Then at Carol, whose experiment had changed everything. Now, Alan said, we tell them the truth. Their gods are just farmers, and we're the crop that's growing in an unexpected way. Outside, the sound of alien voices grew louder. The moment of truth had arrived. The sky above New York City filled with light as hundreds of shadow beings appeared. They were clearly visible now, not just to humans but to everyone. Throughout the city, aliens fell to their knees in worship, their skin patterns showing deep, religious awe. But in the underground lab, the humans and Zukal knew better. These were not gods. They were watchers, gardeners of civilization, and now their secret was exposed. Alan Foster stood with his team and Zukal in the middle of Central Park. The lab had been destroyed in the confusion when the Venerator aliens broke in, but they had managed to escape with the most important part of Carol's machine, the communication device. They're gathering, Samantha said, pointing upward. More shadow beings appeared every minute, their forms darker and more solid than ever before. Why can everyone see them now? Frank asked, his hand resting on his weapon. The machine changed something, Carol explained. It forced them to become more present in our dimension. They can't hide anymore. Betty Kim, who had recently taken over as head of Earth's diplomatic team, joined them. She was a calm woman with a strong voice and a mind that found solutions where others saw only problems. The United Nations Security Council is in emergency session, Betty reported. Half the world is in panic. The other half is celebrating what they think is a religious event. Alan looked at Zukal. The alien skin showed patterns of deep confusion and loss. How are your people taking it? Some still worship, Zukal said quietly. Others demand answers. The Alliance has never faced such a crisis of faith. In orbit, the situation was growing tense. Venerator ships and skeptic ships were positioning themselves against each other. On Earth's surface, millions of people were seeing shadow beings. For the first time, reacting with everything from fear to religious fervor. Carol worked quickly to set up her communication device. It was smaller than the lab version, but she believed it would still work. If we can talk to them again, maybe we can prevent a disaster, she said. As she activated the device, a humming filled the air. Above them, the largest shadow being seemed to notice. It descended slowly until it hovered just above the ground in front of them. Its form was massive, at least 20 feet tall, with dozens of tendrils moving like smoke in the wind. The device translated its light pulses. You have changed. The balance. This was not foreseen. We had to know the truth, Alan replied. You've manipulated civilizations for thousands of years. It's time for that to end. The shadow's pulses flashed rapidly. You do not understand the purpose. The garden must be tended. We are not plants, Betty said firmly. We are thinking beings with the right to determine our own future. Around the world, other humans were setting up similar devices, allowing the conversations with the shadow beings to be broadcast. Globally, the secret was spreading. High above, the alien ships were moving closer to each other. Weapon systems were powering up. They will destroy each other over this revelation, Zukal said, his skin showing distress. Thousands of years of belief, cannot be undone in a day. The shadow beings seemed to grow larger. This conflict was inevitable. Humans see too much, know too much. Other species required guidance. Humans question. Is that why you never revealed yourselves to us before? Alan asked. Because we would have questioned you instead of worshipping you? Yes, the shadow replied. Your species evolved differently. Your eyes see what should be hidden. Your minds reject control. You are problematic. Frank laughed without humor. I think that's a compliment. More shadow beings descended, surrounding the park. People gathered at the edges, watching in awe and fear. News cameras broadcast the scene worldwide. What happens now? Betty asked the shadow being. Your secret is exposed. You can't go back to being invisible gods. The shadow's pulses became slower, more deliberate. A choice must be made. The alliance must evolve or shatter. Humans must join or be isolated. That's not much of a choice, Alan said. It is more than any species has been given before, the shadow replied. Above them, a bright light flashed as one of the alien ships fired on another. The conflict had begun. Stop them, Zukal cried, his skin flashing with panic patterns. They will destroy each other. The shadow being rose higher. Its tendrils extended outward, touching other shadows. Light pulses flashed between them in rapid conversation. They're deciding what to do about us, Samantha whispered. After what seemed like hours but was only minutes, the main shadow descended again. We have existed for millennia, it said through the translator. We have guided hundreds of species. Some succeeded, others failed. None have done what humans have done, seen us without help, questioned us without fear. What does that mean? For us, Betty asked. It means change, the shadow replied. For us, for the Alliance, for humans. The old way ends today. The shadow rose again, higher this time. As it ascended, it grew brighter until it was like a star in the daytime sky. All the other shadows did the same, forming a network of light above the planet. On the alien ships, weapons powered down. The conflict paused as all eyes turned to the spectacle. What are they doing? Frank asked. I believe, Zukal said, his skin showing awe patterns despite his new knowledge. They are revealing themselves fully for the first time in our history. The network of light pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Carol's device translated, to all species of the Alliance, the time of guidance has ended. The time of partnership begins. Humans have shown us another way. They see without worship. They question without fear. From this day forward, we will not be your gods. We will be your equals. Those who accept this truth will find a new place in the galaxy. Those who cling to old beliefs must find their own path. The light grew even brighter, then suddenly vanished. The shadow beings were gone from sight, but somehow everyone knew they were still present, watching. In orbit, the alien ships pulled back from each other. On the ground, aliens and humans looked at each other with new understanding. It's over, Samantha said quietly. No, Alan replied. It's just beginning. Zukal's skin showed new patterns, not worship or fear, but something like hope. For thousands of years we evolved to see them, but you were born with that ability. Perhaps humans were meant to lead us to this moment all along. Betty smiled. Not as subjects or masters, but as partners. As night fell over the city, people remained in the streets looking up at the stars with new eyes. The universe had changed today. Old gods had fallen. New truths had emerged. And at the center of it all was humanity. Not because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced than other species, but because they had done something both simple and revolutionary. They had looked at beings pretending to be gods and simply asked why. The shadows were still watching, but now, for the first time, everyone was watching back.